has been those kind of years that we cannot begin any sort of conversation without bringing up all the circumstances that's happening in the world with the pandemic, social issues as well. But I'm very curious to hear your point of view about what's the role of architecture and design in such a turbulent world.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I guess it's evolving so much. There's so much unrest, there's so much uncertainty, and design and architecture has such an important role to play, I think. Like, design and architecture is the one kind of stable, the built environment surrounds us all at all times, and it impacts all of our behavior and how that continues to evolve. Like, it impacts every aspect of our lives all of the time. So I think it's pretty important now in general, I think, to frame how people behave and how they live.
I've been thinking a lot about, this kind of these cocoons that we create for people. And not only, how important they are right now. People want to feel safe and comfortable. So, I think there's a real responsibility in a great way to really think about values and think about decisions that we help our clients with in terms of where they put their resources, how flexible they need to be. All these subjects are kind of new to the conversation for me with my clients. So I do feel great. I feel greatly responsible for these quarantine environments that we're providing for people. I'm actually really enthusiastic about our role in that right now.
Well, I haven't been home this long since ever. Seriously, I've grown up my whole life. I've been moving. So on a very personal level, I've come to experience how important what we do is, and how focused one can be in the way that one creates their own environment so that it works for them. And sometimes I don't think we think through it as well as we should. I do it for other people. I always have been sort of function obsessed with my clients, and I really try to get in their heads, and what we do for them has always been something that works for them and expresses who they are. So for me, it's been a very interesting experience because all of a sudden I'm focused on myself. And it's opened up a lot of different things. And I do feel that we are in a very unique position because our business actually has a huge opportunity among all this. Not only an opportunity in terms of business, but an opportunity in actually, to actually make a difference. So I look at it as an incredible learning experience to improve the way that we do things for others so that their lives are further improved, and like Elizabeth said, so that they're making lasting good decisions. We are a huge part of that. It's a service we provide, and I think this makes us better at it.
Yeah, it all sounds really, really good. Usually I'm a bit more provocative when I talk about things, so I apologize up front. So I hope no one takes it so personally. I'm not so 100% sure that our role is so important, because it's very, I think, to control the environment in a way that people behave in a certain way. I think that's something that already Frank Lloyd Wright sort of did in 1920s. So he sort of transformed the space in a way that people started behaving, and he would really enjoy in seeing that in like the villas in Los Angeles. I'm pretty sure Roman knows them very well, and I'm always a bit worried when people say our role is so fundamental. I think it's going to be a learning process, and like right away, I don't see architects and designers, interior designers, find the solutions on how to react on what COVID is and what social distancing is. I mean, I'm dealing right now with a hospitality project, and the client would like to have like just a regular restaurant, but at the same time, he knows that the next 2 years it's in Paris, so local regulations and all that. It is kind of difficult to react and to sort of satisfy the client, but at the same time have a vision of what is going to be or what the next 2 years are going to be. So it's going to be a mix, I think, and it's kind of very emotional right now still.
But don't you think that maybe the solution is going to be different for everybody, right? Because depending where you are, where you live, regulations in Paris will be different regulations in Los Angeles. So I think that's going to be more of a soul search with the designer and the client, right?
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? Because so rather than reacting to the situation and talking about what's coming, obviously that depends on the type of job, whether it's hospitality, whether it's commercial, whether it's bigger government spaces. But if you strip it right back to the human side of things, kind of what Elizabeth was saying, and like the home is where all of the scared people, all of the people going through this, everyone has been at home. Well, not everyone, but the majority of people have been at home and have gone home when, like you say, they're used to traveling, they're used to constant moving, fast paced. It's really easy to ignore fundamental things that are maybe wrong in your home environment, in your family setting, and all of a sudden everyone's been, in a way, it kind of is good to look at what the home means and the importance of that environment around you. So if you even just start with home and don't look further afield, that's kind of the core space that everyone has. And all of a sudden, I think it forces people, forces us to be more authentic in how we design and less focused on the end pretty picture. It needs to be deeper than that. It needs to make people feel safe and secure in their home environment.
And I have a thought about another type of project that I'm spending all the time thinking about right now. And that is, I think, our role as the architect is so unique in that we, I remember for some reason so very well from training that, being the architect is sort of like being the hub in the wheel where you have all these different spokes that go out to different trainings. So we are the connection for the engineers, the mechanical engineer, the structural engineer, the lighting designer, all these things come back to us. And right now there are some opportunities that I think are unique, that architects are uniquely able to, and designers as well, who are accustomed to corralling all these really smart people and getting a project done well. And I think it's a uniquely connected position right now. If you want to think about things and get things done quickly and novelly, I've really come to appreciate that.
Now, we all have been experiencing some sort of lockdown or stay home for months, and I'm assuming most of us didn't think we would still be here today, and here we are. What are some of the aspects that you have rethinking or reinforced that you wanted to change, either in your personal life or professional life, that before the pandemic you wouldn't even consider?
It's funny because, my opinion of how we should do things hasn't really changed. Okay, I think if anything, things that I already believed in have become even more apparent and important. And obviously, the main one is how we consume. I think the way we consume things and the way that we aid our clients in their consumerism is the most important thing that I've kind of really focused on. I think, that what you bring into your home in terms of the attention you pay to the way you live, the things that you bring into it, the things that you want to live with and how you want to live with them. Those choices, I think, are definitely have become a little more important to me. And I've always been very careful with this and the way that we work with our clients in terms of what they invest in. But I think even more so now, because I think we have an opportunity to really help them live in a way that's more sustainable and that is more connected to nature. And we've always believed in that, and we've always worked to do that. And Elizabeth, you're talking about, the relationship with the outdoors and how now that's become so apparent and so necessary. Living in Los Angeles, that's part of what we do every day. But now there's an incredible focus on it, not only as the joy of living that way, but the necessity of living that way. So the focus shifts on how you consume things and bring things into your life, and to what degree you do it in. I think I feel like we were at the edge of what we were at in 2008, and that was about to break. And I felt it. Something has to happen, because I was seeing the instincts of our clients and how they reflected the instincts of our clients then. Wanting this, that, collecting for the wrong reasons. All that stuff was happening at a very, very fast pace. And I have like PTSD from them. And I was feeling it. I was like, wait a minute, something has to happen. And little did I know that it would be this. But, here it is. Here's the reset, right? So once again, like we did back then, all of a sudden it just really comes into focus, and you're like, okay, this is what's important and why. And then educating them so that they make the right choices. In the end, that's what we do. Help them.
Mm-hmm. Consumer aspect, I think, is very interesting, because all of you have work all over the world and you have clients from all over the world. But do you think they vary in terms of the background, where they're coming from? And do you think in Europe we still have the same mentality? People do really want to overconsume, or that has changed a little?
No, it has changed already. I would say in the past 10 years. I mean, in our project, I can only speak for myself, and maybe for some colleagues or colleague friends that I have. I never, not once, used a block of marble to build a bath sink or a bathtub. I would always use very thin slabs, and technology now allows us to do so. So that is technological processes that allowed us in the past 10 years. So not once I would have suggested to a client, not even very wealthy one. It would be more like a capriccio, as we say, capricieux. Like I want that, so I would try to convince them to maybe choose a more ecological, but it would be also sort of the more cool version, like ecological equals cool. And if you can teach that to a client and the client gets it, and he's like, oh my God, yeah, it's really better. It's better for the environment to produce like a single bathtub, and you have to break down. You show them how marble is produced. You bring them to Carrara, for instance, which is like very close to where I'm right now here, and you show them how marble is produced. So you teach them, and I really love how Roman before said, I was sort of smiling instantly when he was talking about like teaching the client, and it's super important. That's where I 100% agree. That is the role of an architect in 2020, past COVID, post COVID, post whatever is happening, and we really have. We have sort of a teaching role regarding materials, regarding style, chicness, and whatnot, like aesthetics and all that. But first of all, I would say our ethical role is definitely trying to get the client to get it.
100% know what you're talking about. I set up KLD in 2009, so very, very similar. After what you're talking about, Roman, and so like that, it was kind of like, how do you make magic with nothing? I remember like the first job I did, was a house. Again, pretty much absolutely no budget. I spent more than I got paid on fees on the photography, and everyone said, "What? That makes absolutely no sense." I was like, "Bear with me, please." Like it will work. But it's totally like, I think what that comes down to though is the design integrity to begin with, because the core idea, regardless of how it's then executed, needs to be really strong, so that then you can come up with creative ways of doing things irrespective of budget. And we have clients, thankfully, now we have a mixture of clients, and it really does depend. And, obviously if there's more money involved in a project, you do get to play with even marble to begin with. It's an expensive product one way or another. But I do think that, money doesn't equal good design at all. Like the creative concept is the essence. And for me, COVID kind of forced me to stop being so busy, so distracted on site, so I guess caught up in the day-to-day, and gave a minute to remember why I do what I do. I'm sure you guys are similar. It gives that minute of perspective of like, oh no, it's the design I love, like the core, the creative, the like creating something unexpected, like irrespective of all the hassle that comes with that, and the trades and the drama and the hectic and all of that, like remembering like, oh, I just love creating something, and having time to actually focus on that was definitely a positive. And that's irrespective of cost.
Well, on the point of making magic, I think it's interesting because I'm a firm believer that creativity really shines when you somehow find boundaries. In this case, that's budget, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Do you think, of course, bigger budget always can make projects a bit more fun, stress-free. I don't know if that's the case. But do you feel sometimes the idea to have restraints or a problem solving or something that needs to be tackled, it will really push you to come up with more interesting and creative ideas?
I love parameters. Give me parameters all day long. Love them. I can't operate in a situation where there are none. I feel like what we do is, number one, problem solving. And if you have no problems to solve, how do you begin? Right? And parameters usually create those challenges that actually make it interesting. I don't find it interesting unless I have them.
I love to start with, context, client, of course. But oftentimes, a lot of the work we do is in existing buildings in New York City, and there's history, and there's grit, and there's like unraveling, and those are our parameters usually. Is the sidewalk is there and the ceiling is there, and we have to make something gorgeous between here and there. Always parameters. It's always, even if it's an open field, it's the orientation of the site. It's the seasons. It's you always have something that constricts you. So budget is, keeps your feet on the ground, and actually can oftentimes limit the number of iterations you have to do, because you're like, well, look, there are 3 really good things, and beyond that, we just, and that can be refreshing if somebody has all the time in the world and all the money in the world. It's possible to get nothing done.
It can be problematic, right?
Although I don't know those people, I think that.
Now, I think it's interesting, Elizabeth, because you do work with a lot of restoration, bringing back life to old buildings. Do you feel like that's also a part of sustainable architecture? Is not only putting new buildings, but perhaps the building that doesn't need to be built and can be restored?
Well, specifically, I'll speak about New York City right now, but, in the last 10 years, there's so many glamorous high-rise luxury buildings that have gone up. And I think I've been in New York for close to 25 years working, and I've seen this real kind of old work disappear, which is something that has character that's not your own, was created, with some kind of general idea of what will sell. So I just think the more that is built that isn't old, like the more precious these existing structures become. But I really believe in not creating museum, pieces. It's not about, some pieces, some architecture deserves that, but oftentimes it's about what can you do with new pieces of building. It's going to give them another 200 years of life. And I think that's really important.
At what point of your career, Róisín, I want to ask you this, did you feel empowered enough to take creative chances in your work?
I think for me, it's been pretty important to me the whole time. And I think, so I graduated from my degree, then it was a recession. There were no jobs in Ireland whatsoever. So I went and did a master's in London because there really weren't that many options. And I kind of started out like making my mistakes on my own time and lack of money, zero money. So it was really naivety and complete stubbornness and ambition that started. So I started very much without anything to lose in a way. So as a result, the thing that I was drawn to all the time, the reason I put all my eggs in one basket was because that's all I wanted to do, kind of create excitement. The idea that there's more possibilities, that like Ireland, for example, wouldn't have traditionally been known for its design. Like the architecture, in the countryside, it's very repetitive, it's very mundane. The idea that you could create something more, that there was like more options, that you could create whimsy and excitement and evoke imagination. That was kind of the whole reason I got into this. So I've done it from the start and like that from the start with no budgets. So I guess now I would say I'm a lot freer to express and push those boundaries. Like now I've got an amazing team of creatives that push me as well. And now luckily we've created, projects that we have clients who fully come to us because they want something new. They come to us because they know who we are. And that's taken 10 years to get to there, definitely. And that's all it comes down to trust. I genuinely think like the best design projects I've ever worked on are the ones where you have the most open and trusting relationship with the client. Without that, like that balance is everything. Like you can have the most creative idea, but if your client doesn't trust you and genuinely appreciate the value of the design, it's just going to be kind of too difficult. So like now I would say it's having really brave clients that get what we do and we're all able to be ourselves in that creative bubble, and that's what works for us.
No, I mean, again, it sounds all really, really, really fascinating. It's really hard. It's really hard to get those clients that really trust you. I mean, my office is now open for 10 years, and I gotta say, very rarely I find that clients really to 100% trust you, and so. It's always like a convincing process, and then there is the teaching process, and there is the learning process. And in there, I mean, there are some exceptions. Otherwise, probably I would have already, quit my job. There are some clients that really have a little bit more trust. I don't know what it is. It's a European thing, but clients tend to be very, very critical towards everything, especially when it comes to budget. So first of all, we're like budget wasters, so in there finding that client that tells you, okay, carte blanche, okay, now just go for it, and we really love what you do. There's so few of them, and we're probably a lot of architects are fighting for those very few open-minded clients and trusting clients. So probably in the States it's just different, or here it's the struggle is real. In Europe, probably we're too many. architects. Probably there is too much competition and there is not enough. So to answer the question of before, to be bold is the only way to make yourself noticeable, to make yourself sort of, for me, there was no way I wouldn't be bold with every single project, because that's the only way to get yourself known to, a larger clientele. Or so for us, it's super important, for instance, in Italy, to be published by local magazines. It's okay, but it's nothing like being published in the United States, I would say, in Architectural Digest, because that would probably mean a lot of clients already. And to be published in the Italian Architectural Digest, that would be like, I don't know, like a drop on a hot stone, we say it here. So we really have to get out there, get published in France, get published in the UK, and really fight for it. And the only way to do that is to be bold to 110%, not only 100%. So you really have to go for it. With every single project, go for it.
The publishing is an interesting conversation. I mean, Roman and Elizabeth, both of you have been published on AD. And but publishing is changing a lot, too, since where it used to be. There's a lot going on. And I feel, I could be wrong, the priority before was to be well-established published designer. There are designers out there that are doing great work. And you an example, but that perhaps haven't got that visibility in terms of the US yet. How important do you think still is for you that has accomplished to still be published with your work? Because a lot of clients also are private. I notice a lot of people don't want to put the work in magazines anymore when you start reaching a certain level of a clientele. But that's still a very important element of design.
I mean, I actually used to be, my professional beginnings were in PR. I was a PR person for many years in New York, before I even imagined that I would be doing what I'm doing today. And yes, it has certainly changed. That world has completely changed. It's turned upside down, actually. The importance of being in a magazine have diminished to a degree that it's almost more important to be in a magazine for yourself than it is for others. Okay, I really don't think it plays that big a role. I think it plays a bigger role when the magazine has other outlets and can actually take your work beyond their pages. So I think magazines are really making an effort to compete in that sense. Because when I'm weighing out where a project's going to go, and like you say, they're rare because most clients do not want their projects published. And it's not because they don't want to be in a magazine. It's because they've realized that it doesn't stop there. If you publish their project in a magazine, you're basically opening it up to the world. It used to be that it would be in a magazine, it would be in there for a month, and then that magazine was in the garbage, and it was done, right? And clients were much more open to that. Now their houses and their spaces and their lives are exposed forever. And, it's really hard to police it. It's almost impossible. I have a client that allowed me to put their home in our portfolio, and I have to police their images on social media. Literally, people put them up, and I have to tell them, please take that picture down. And it's really difficult. And, nobody. So it's such an open. So you want to promote yourself. It's really about getting it out to the world. So when you have this precious project, one project that you can publish, you're really going to weigh out who you're going to give it to based on the exposure you get from it and whatever goals you want from the exposure of it. So it's really become a completely different game. Like the idea of publishing your work. It's actually really hard to navigate, and I've actually needed to hire somebody to do it in the last few years, because even though I did it for 20 years, I couldn't do it anymore. I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I need help.
Right. It's no longer just the magazines, is it? There's so many ways to be in touch with your kind of future clientele. And I think it probably was simpler at one point. But yeah, I agree. I just recently hired my first public relations help. And, but I find that she's not going to magazines. It's more about, this is important to us as a firm. And how, what are the different ways, creative ways we can get into this subject? So is it an interview with, world-class designers and to have a really interesting discussion about values like we're doing right now? Yeah. And, I think that books are now a very different commodity. And I think that, the publishing world is, as everybody knows, magazines are this thin now.
Yeah.
And who knows? But I do see that, beautifully created, considered books with beautiful essays that, reflect your kind of ethos and your work. And, that type of printed matter, I think, is a really nice next step. I think once magazines lose a little bit of their luster, maybe, or outreach. But then obviously the website, Here we all now get to curate our own portfolio that anyone can find.
Yeah.
And that's a really important tool, obviously. But I think it really goes hand in hand with a little less outreach through magazines. And we have our own way to kind of reach out to people now with presenting our work.
And by the way, I've never gotten a job from an article in a magazine.
I don't think I have either.
I mean, when you ask a client, how did you hear about us? It's usually word of mouth, a referral. A couple of people because of the hotel work. I think they've stayed at hotels that we've done. They felt something emotional and they've called us because of that. And subsequently we've done their homes. So it's never really from a magazine. I mean, the magazine, we sold things because of a magazine in our shop, that's for sure. And I think your name recognition is important. But I've never gotten a job because of an article.
It's interesting in Ireland. And again, I think it's because we were probably behind, actually behind a lot of the rest of Europe and America. And there's something about this kind of distrust towards design, by the general public. There's it's almost seen as separate, you're either a design type person or you're not. And definitely being exposed to Instagram and Pinterest and all of that has definitely made people freer to be experimental, even for their own homes. But press, for me as an Irish designer, has validated clients. So yes, you're not necessarily hired because you're published in something, but they are reassured. So it's kind of like a preemptive thing. And then they'll see that you get international press, and then that's okay, well, then it is okay to go with her, even though, I'm not sure. So again, it's almost like validating that trust. And again, I think that maybe it's just an Irish thing, but cynical nature in people. But it's definitely something that has elevated our business in Ireland through, say, international press. And it's an association. It's also an association of we're little Ireland. Oh, you're featured in America. You must be good type thing. So it's a funny game. But Instagram is something that we do get actual work from a lot. And again, it's more the constant touch point. A lot of our clients will screenshot stories and stuff that I've put up, and you just wouldn't think that they'd be looking at that kind of thing, but they like to know the process maybe more so than just the finished styled photo. So that's kind of, I guess, a newer way. I know it's been around for a long time, but it didn't used to be there. So now people get to see more of the process as opposed to just the end results, which you could argue both ways. But, does it take the mystery away? Does it make it too accessible? I don't know. But for us, it certainly gets us active work.
The validation part is a big thing, and I agree. I mean, we've been in business 15 years, and certainly we wouldn't be where we are today if we hadn't had the support of the press, and particularly certain publications. AD's been amazing for us, and mostly because it's a relationship that you build, and so you really look out for each other in a way, and those relationships are really important, I think, because it goes beyond the publication. It really is about people. And you get much more than just the publication of your project. You get information and support that's beyond the magazine. So those relationships are really important, and the validation part of it is key, even for yourself. It gives you confidence. I get it.
That's one thing about the creative industry that I find fascinating is the relationship and the collaboration. There's a lot of collaboration. There's architects collaborating with interior designers, collaborating with manufacturers, collaborating with artists. It's a big group of people. But I'm curious to know about how you bring people to work with you, your team. Because at the end of the day, there's much behind the scene that people don't know. It's way more complicated. It's a business at the end of the day. It's not only about making a beautiful architecture or a beautiful room, put it together. There's logistics, there's accounting, there's people behind you supporting that vision. So can you just tell me a little bit about some of the things that you're looking for in the people that come work for you?
I've been thinking about this a bit during our discussion because I think it's one of the things that I've really come to realize is important. As a number of you mentioned, we're at home so much, we're slowed down, we're able to think a little bit more, we're working differently, obviously, but I really miss my studio.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize how important knowing each other is, and knowing each other well and having fun. And, I think the reason we're able to do it now, via screens for the most part, is that we did it together, all hours of the night, 7 days a week. And at some point, this is going to become a problem. We've got to get back to working together to keep that kind of joy. And, we feed off of each other inspiration and motivation.
We're very non-corporate in any way. So for many years, when I set up the studio, it was in my house. So as the team grew, people were coming to my house, and that went on for probably 5 years. And then suddenly there was a team of 9 of us, and then, you'd be sick and you'd be upstairs and your whole team's downstairs. That was a bit weird. But we've created, our office is very much a clinical space that's nothing like an office. So it's an old kind of dilapidated Georgian building over like 5 floors, and it's not about size. It's each floor is like a different experience, and it's kind of ever changing. So we would experiment a lot with different materials and things as we're working. So it's kind of this organic frame. But for me, it's the team that keep it fresh. Like my team now is quite small, and it's smaller after COVID. Again, I think things get maybe leaner and you need to reassess things. So there's 9 of us, including me, and they're all just so vibrant and energetic, and everyone pushes each other, and it's probably quite informal. Like there is no hierarchy, there's no structure in that way from the very start. I'd rather someone be fully immersed in the project they're working on. So there's not kind of a set of people doing CAD drawings and a set of people on site. It's everyone that kind of has ownership within. It's taken a long time. Like you learn a lot about people, hire people, and I've realized only in hindsight that the team wasn't always healthy, and if there's one toxic element in the group, it festers, and it's like this little family you want to protect. So now it's kind of like genuine kind of love and care for each other. So now it's almost like, don't touch my family. I'm not letting anyone else in. It's just this nice bubble. But that keeps us, I guess it's kind of intoxicating when everyone's energetic. You just all kind of feed off each other. So for me, I need that. I love that. And I know you work with people and hands in a different way, but for me, I kind of thrive off the bouncing it all off other people. So we're probably quite different. Interesting to see though how everyone works.
Well, I mean, again, we've been in business for like over 15 years, and we went from 4 people to 40 in 3 years at the beginning. And then 2008 happened, and we went from 40 to 11 in like 1 week. And that was pretty traumatic. And then we said, we're never going to do this again, right? We're never going to be 40 again. And then we became 45, fairly quickly. And I hated it all along. And my business partner, Stephen, did too. Because for us, it's really important that we knew and worked with everyone in the studio. And it was impossible when you're that big. And what happens when you're that big is also there are these poisoned sort of, things that you're not keeping your eye on. And all of a sudden you have like a mutiny and you didn't even know why, right? And so about 5 years ago, we went through a huge restructuring. 2 of our partners, we separated. And so it's just Stephen and I now with Commune. And he and I have worked together for 30 years. So we are almost one person in the way that we see things. And we made a very conscious decision that we would only have 18 people. And we actually designed a new office that we moved into 2 weeks before lockdown. And that office was designed with only 20 desks, including ourselves. And we will never have any more than that. That's it, And so it's really important that each member is the right member. So when we look in people, I'm very particular in terms of who they are as individuals. So I like for them to have, of course, the technical ability that's necessary for their job. But more important to me is who they are. So I go into what they're interested in personally. I ask them for their personal journals, or not journals, but their if they have some kind of a book where they draw or stuff like that. I always ask them for the things that they are working on themselves. A lot of our people, the people on our team are they're ceramicists or artists or sculptors at home. Sometimes they bring that into the studio. They're very varied in their talents, but they complement each other pretty well. And Stephen and I both have a mixed bag of lives before we did this, right? So I tend to look for people that also have a mixed background and who are team players, who are not drama queens. I have no patience for any of that. The minute I see in an interview someone who thinks they're more than what they are, no. I want people that can work within a team. That's super, super important, and who know the fact that they're not. It's not about them. It's really about the work that we do together. It's in the name of the company, so it's really important that they understand that from the very beginning.
I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I think all of you have a very important voice, and you have been putting forward your thoughts, your idea, your vision. And I think you're all an example at some capacity and an inspiration for a lot of people in the industry that more than ever need inspiration. A lot of people are facing difficulties all over the world. But one thing that we can do, we not might be able to solve all the problems in the world, but we certainly can bring inspiration and get people really smile here and there every once in a while. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. I know, guys, it's taking time of your busy day. I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Our pleasure.